Even months after his death, my little brother was still the first person I thought about when I woke up in the morning, and my last thought before falling asleep at night. He was everywhere I looked, in every conversation I had, even when his name wasn't mentioned. It was ironic, really, that he took up so much headspace when in the last few years before his death, I could go days without thinking about him at all. Henry had always been like that. He showed up at the least opportune moments, like the night I'd finally asked Kristen Preston out my junior year of high school and he'd plopped down beside us in the movie theater like I'd invited him along. When I should have been thinking about him and talking to him, we'd both been too busy to catch up. And now that he was gone, and I'd do anything to erase that fact from my mind, he was all I could think about. I missed him like hell. I was also so angry with him that I wanted to punch something. I wondered if other siblings, ones who'd been born into the same family by accident of birth, felt the same way toward each other as I did toward Henry. Did they get so angry that they wanted to shake sense into their little brothers? Or was it easier to give up on someone they'd never had to fight for to begin with? When he'd come into our lives, Henry's placement had been temporary. It was months before we'd known that he might stay forever. As a boy who had watched numerous other children move in and out of our house, knowing that Henry would stay had been difficult for me. I'd had to make a conscious choice to think of him as family. Once that shift had been made, though, I'd known that nothing would ever sever that bond. Even after all of the things I'd found out about Henry after his death, I still felt myself fighting for the memory I had of him, searching for the answers that would show that his decisions in life had made any type of sense. "Mom?" I called out as I pushed the door open without knocking. "You home?" "I'm back here," she yelled back from somewhere in the bowels of the house I'd grown up in. I followed the sound of her voice down the hallway and found her seated at the long table in her craft room, gluing little sheets of paper onto a scrapbook page. "Hey, Trev," she said, lifting her head to smile at me. "Everything okay?" Guilt hit me hard and fast. A few months ago, a random visit wouldn't have garnered that type of question. But my mom seemed to have aged by years in less than a few months. Losing Henry, a boy she'd raised as her own since he was only 2, had been a blow she hadn't recovered from. But the revelation that he'd abandoned his own child seemed to have completely broken her. "Just wanted to see you," I said, smiling back. I stepped into the room and looked over the scrapbook she was making. It was covered in photos of my cousin Kate and foster brother Shane's kids. It had been a few years, but I still couldn't believe that my foster brother and cousin had fallen in love. The page Mom was working on had snapshots of their 4 oldest running through a sprinkler. "Looking good." "Thanks," she said, picking up a glue stick. "I swear I can't keep up with the pictures. These are from last year." I pulled up a chair from the side of the little room and spun it around, stretching out my long legs as I sat down beside her. My mom was so petite that I always felt like a giant when I was near her. From the time I was 13, I'd been taller than she was, and we'd gotten a lot of speculating looks when she'd taken me into town for school clothes or other random shit. The small, pale white woman bossing around the dark-skinned black kid who dwarfed her. She'd never let those looks bother her, so I hadn't either, at least not out loud. I'd just raised my chin a little and walked a step closer, making sure that any comments directed toward her would have to go through me first. When I was a kid, it had worked. People had backed off a bit, unwilling to cause problems. As I'd gotten older, though, it seemed to have become harder for the population just to accept shit as none of their business. I never knew if it had been the change in my appearance or the social changes that had risen up around us, forcing people to take a second look and choose which side they wanted to be on. As if there were fucking sides to begin with. "Dad should be home in a little bit," Mom said, pulling my attention away from how her delicate hands placed small letters in an arch across the top of the page. "We're grilling burgers if you want to stay." "Maybe," I replied. "I actually wanted to talk to you guys." "About what?" She looked at me curiously.